Okay, I couldn't hear that from here. Okay.
We have we're going to show this. I guess if you want to use this again. Using the emulator, using F2.
Well, you need the floor stand for.
Floor stand?
Yeah,
Oh,
that's what the whole counterbalance is for. What you can do is you can duct tape a bunch of the table stands together and make a floor stand out of it.
Are people going to come over and ask questions?
We're rolling? Okay. I want to thank you all for sticking through today. And again, just make the announcement that if there are any talks that you're particularly fond of, if you've noticed the very hardworking gentleman back there running the cameras, running back and forth between both rooms, all the lectures are being taped, and he's producing them on DVDs as quick as possible. So if there's something you really like, you want to take it back to coworkers or friends, or if there's a talk that you missed because you were looking at another talk you really wanted to hear, the talks are available for $20 in the vendor area. And he's producing them just about as quickly as he can, so you can literally walk out of a talk, wait a few minutes, and have the talk in your hand. And there's a party going on later on tonight you guys might have heard of. Woot. Woo. I want to hear a little more woot than that. That was kind of pathetic. Ooh. There we go. There we go. We got a ass load of booze. Thanks to Microsoft. Microsoft is doing some good by providing us with free booze tonight. It's all top shelf stuff, so it should be great. It's at the old Dachbodenlab. So if you guys know where that is, it's, well, where it used to be down in the basement of the church lots. If you don't know where that is, if you can just find a map of downtown and look for 10th Street, or actually look for E and head down E to hit 10th Street, it's right at the corner there. You should be able to figure out where it is from all the loud noise from the live DJs that we've got going off down there. It's actually in the basement on the side of the building. On the entrance is the Black Gate on E Street. But if you just walk down there and listen for the loud music and look for the drunken people wearing black T-shirts, you'll probably find it. So, will you be out front? Yeah. But right now we've got the nostalgia panel coming up. I'll actually let the moderator here introduce, or maybe I should let everyone on the panel introduce themselves. So without further ado, we've got the nostalgia panel for you with a lot of old school hacking. So let's give a big round of applause for all the participants here.
So thanks for coming out, staying so late. I guess this was originally supposed to start at 5, so it's 7 now, and talk for hours. Dan and I have talked till about 5 in the morning about X25 hacking, even just a month ago. So afterwards, if we run long and you still want to shoot the shit and talk about old stuff, feel free to come up. If you do stick around till the end of the normal talk, I have some giveaways, if you can answer questions. So mostly nostalgic giveaways as well.
Mooches.
So I guess without further ado, we'll do some quick introduction. Kind of give a bit of an outline of what I thought we might do, and it's very free form, so this is basically the only slide. So I'm Gray. You've probably never heard of me, and I'll explain why in a little bit. This is D&M, as you can see from our BBS logo here. We've got Damon right here, and Ambient Empire, and then finally Captain Crunch. So that said, so I saw Chris Abad's submission, and Dan's submission, and a bunch of other submissions with their sweet ANSI and ASCII, and Vlad's awesome compiling C submission. I just thought, fuck. Like, okay, personally, I'm 30. I haven't broken into other computers since I turned 18, or rather before I turned 18. And so that was, what, 93, something like that. And so it's been a long time, and I haven't really done anything that interesting, but I thought maybe I could just talk about my old stuff. And Dan submitted something, half hour later it was posted, and week goes by, I think, oh, it was fun. But Hikari actually called me and said, you know what, we got all these submissions and this and that, but nostalgia panel would be cool. And I thought so too. And he said, would you mind if other people talked with you? I thought that would be even better. So that said, sort of the general outline, I mean, I could talk a little bit about old stuff I did, but that might be better for the Q&A session. One thing, if you don't want to get busted, don't talk about what you do. And I haven't done that for 13 years, and maybe I'll reveal some stuff tonight, but it's actually a safe maneuver if you're doing stuff that, you've got the Digital Millennium Copyright Act and, Patriot Act and all this other bullshit. I think they just revoked habeas corpus the other day. So if you're worried about the hostile environment that we're living in, just keep your mouth shut, and you'll be fine. So that said, as a general guideline, there's a lot of cool old stuff out there, and I think Dan and Damon can talk quite a bit about just cool old memory tricks and just cool hacking things that we have with constrained systems that we don't so much anymore. In addition to that, like in a constrained system is very limited. It's actually good for provability, and provability itself is good for security. It's not something we deal with too often. Just alternative. So functional programming. I love talking about list machines with Dan and multics a bit. Just hardware architectures we've lost. So things like list machines or multics. Like list machines, the last iterations had 48-bit CPUs. They did shitloads of garbage collection and hardware. So buffer overflows, integer overflows, all these out-of-bounds memory errors basically weren't exploitable. They'd throw an exception, and that would be it. And I think the last multics machine was made in 1988, and the last was manufactured in 93. That was the design thereabouts. And Thomas Lopatec didn't rediscover Morris's buffer overflow exploitation techniques until 94 or 95. So basically we discontinued these types of hardware before we even realized how useful they could be. So that's some stuff maybe we can cover. And at the end, I'd kind of like to say, here's some stuff we left behind. Here's some directions. Maybe we should pick these ideas up again and re-implement them. Like FPGAs are cheap. We could do these things in hardware or whatever. So that's kind of a general outline. Maybe I'll pass it over to Damon or Dan, and they can talk a little bit about Apple II stuff. Does that sound good?
Well, all right. I'm DNM. I just talk next door. In terms of so Gray just gave you an overview of what his idea of the project and of this panel discussion was about. Damon, wave Damon. Everybody see Damon? He's kind of obscured by shadow. Damon's a friend of mine who I do a lot of work with professionally and on projects. And basically, I had come back from a trip, and I talked to Damon, and I'm like, Damon. And he said, yes. And I said, you should present something at Toorcon. He's like, well, what about what? I'm like, I don't know. How about, playing around with Apple II emulators? And he's like, okay. And this came out because, who went to DEF CON? All right, most people. Who heard of or went to or some, drunken awareness of Caesar's Challenge this year? And or is Caesar in the room? Kind of, yeah, all right. So Caesar's Challenge this year, is Druid in the room? Sweet. So Caesar's Challenge was essentially you got a little postcard which was had some machine code on it, and you had to figure out what it did, right? And I spent the better part of 2 hours going down a wrong hole because I looked at it and I'm like, this looks like 6502, or not assembly but machine code, right? And I thought that, I immediately thought Apple II. And so I started playing around with Apple II emulators on my PowerBook and spent 2 hours doing exactly the wrong thing, but having a lot of fun doing it. It ended up not being actually, it was 6502, but it was a C64 code, which is what, sorry? 6810. Right, so it was a little bit different. But essentially, that's sort of spurred my interest in thinking about at Toorcon, because I was doing the FPGA talk. I was really wanted to talk about old school hardware and constrained systems because it's something that maps to doing work in FPGAs. And Damon was interested in playing with this stuff because he hadn't really played with it before. And I'll let you talk about that.
So I'm pretty much coming at this from the exact opposite angle as everybody else. Everybody else here has actually done stuff, and I've done nothing. So I don't really know what I'm doing up here. But Dan showed me an Apple II emulator, and I haven't actually touched an Apple II since I was a smaller, obedient little turd version of myself in 3rd grade, and since then haven't seen one. So for the last 3 months, I've been playing around with Apple II emulators and having the time of my life. The reason I'm up here is sort of a three-pronged attack, things that I see happening that I'd like to change. One of them was up, I didn't have any like computer-based community around me, and so I'd like to start those or start seeing those happen more often. Part two of that is that I've seen a lot of papers that have talked about the community in general getting older and not getting a lot of new blood in, which seems to represent what I've actually seen myself. And I think one of the reasons for that might be that modern and current times you've been at, you know, what's the standard accepted language at the time, and then sort of work your way backwards, right? So somebody starting out now would be starting out to look for, you know, their job and would start with, say, .NET. And then that's about as far away as you can get from, you know, Apple II assembly. So being able to play with emulators gives you something really simple to work with, simple to start out with, and doesn't get you drowned in this complexity that people have to deal with today. And then the third one is, well, I don't remember it right now, so maybe in 5 minutes or so.
Chris.
What? I've got to talk? It's fucked up. He took the words out of my mouth. I have no fucking idea why I'm up here, really. When I think about it, the people who probably should be up here are like Simple Nomad back there and like Sardistic out on the patio. Like, not me. I'm not fucking old school. But then, I mean, it flips back and forth. I mean, how many people here is this your first, second, or third conference? Not very many people, really. So maybe what he was saying is right, you know. There's not that many new people in this shit. I have no clue what I'm going to say right now. Why did you make me talk?
Hikari gave us some good additions.
Oh, okay.
I thought you'd...
Well, Chris, tell everybody about tell everybody about the creation of your submission to the CFP, because you were the first CFP that got submitted that posted to the Toorcon website.
Yeah,
by a show of hands, how many people saw Chris's submission? All right, so people know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I guess you could pull it up on the internet thing. Put it on the internet.
It's a series of tubes, I hear.
It's a series of tubes. People still do these fucking things all day. It's not like ANSI and ASCII graphics are like old school. Where's groups are still doing this shit like to this day, and it's pretty awesome actually. The back of the T-shirt, if you guys saw the back of the T-shirt, looked pretty good. The logo at the top was done by Jack Flash of like CIA, ACID. If any of you guys are from the BBS kind of 94, 95, 96 kind of period of time, you probably saw a lot of ACID. Like that motherfucker DH, he did doodling shit, dark. I'm still rambling. Yeah, I guess it was the first CFP. Me and David were just at Recon, and I was like, damn, I don't know anybody here at Recon. It was like all Canadian French people, and I felt like, what am I doing here? And then David was there. I'm like, oh, I'll go talk to David, and he goes on and on about talking about, to this time we're going to have some sweet ASCII at the conference. I'm like, hell yeah, I love sweet ASCII. I always do sweet ASCII stuff. And then I'm like, CFP, and it'll be like a .info file. And then, who did the file ID diz one? I think was it Dean? I think it was Dean. And it was fucking 80 column. You know, but I guess he's like a noob. He should know that a file ID diz is 40 columns always. It's pretty cool times.